The brothers Wisp. The brothers Wisp, brothers Wisp. The brothers Wisp. The brothers.
You're now listening to Greg. It's the Brothers Wisp. Let's take a ride through space.
Hey everybody, this is Greg with the Brothers Wisp number 119. I was just imagining the intro song in my head, so I had to wait a second so that I could hit it at just the right part. So thank you guys for joining us today. Today we have Mikey from Chicagoland.
How's it going?
Hey, and now we also have Tommy C all the way from Colorado land.
Yeah. Hey guys.
Yeah, he's fresh off his summer snow.
Yeah. It was a muddy mess now. Well, it's starting to dry out now because it's super dry everywhere in Colorado, and half the state's still on fire.
That's cool, man. We were out for a walk the other day, and I think we happened to be out at like 10 o'clock or whatever in the morning, and this kind of, I'm not saying it was a cool breeze, but it was a not like Texas 100-degree breeze that hit us, and it just, oh man, I was like, I can feel it. I can feel it coming. Pumpkin spice is on its way, bud. It's almost that time of year. I love the fall. This is my absolute favorite time of the year. Or traditionally, this year it's going to be super weird, right? Because like normally this time of year, so like when it rolls up into October, the Renaissance Festival happens down here, right? Which is a bunch of hooligans getting together and acting a fool, and so I don't know exactly what's going to happen with that. And then Halloween, I guess that's going to be canceled. Like I was trying to engineer these ways, like I could put a table out there and I could put candy on it, and then after a kid gets it, I could sanitize the table and then put more. And I was like, but I don't even think there's going to be any trick-or-treaters out, so that's totally blown. I'm anti-social with my family, so Thanksgiving and Christmas were always just fun holidays where I didn't have to go to work, so that still exists. But I know it's going to be a weird one. Still excited, though. I still look forward to it. I'm not going to worry about that. I'm not going to let that drag me down. So let's get some of the good stuff out of the way. I usually say it's the vegetables, but no, it's the good stuff. So we have a couple of new patrons. If you go to patreon.com/yourbrotherswisp, throw us a couple of bones, you get access to our patron-only Slack. And this go around, I have to say, I think one or two of these actually popped in. Well, there's only two of them. I think one or both of them popped in last go around, and I somehow missed them. But you have Justin Piro and Landon Delgado. And Landon has actually been super active already, and contributed one of the entries on the list I'm going to talk about today. So thank you guys for popping in, supporting the the Little Brothers. I guess becoming a Little Brothers Wisp. I was going to say, what do we call the collective, the group? But yeah, that's the thing. So we also have a couple of sponsors. So we have our Steadfast Normal. We've got Sonar.software, scalable, intuitive, and comprehensive ISP billing and operational support system. So you can go to Sonar.software and check those dudes out. Or guys or non-binary, whatever they happen to be. I don't want to engender their website, so it is what it is. Go and check it out. We also have Cambium. So the amazing, fantastic folks over at Cambium are doing an ePMP bundle. Key points, price. Just under $2,000 for $6,000 value. 6 months of VISP automation and billing, RF elements, twist horns, 2 hours of one-on-one with a ePMP network engineer, and a CN heat trial if you're so interested. And you can check the show notes for a link to both of those. So thank you to our sponsors. So let's get to the bits with the bytes and moving the packets.
One quick tangent off the Cambium thing. I've heard that I think the end of the year they're going to stop selling their Elevate licenses.
Really?
And then that they'll still be operational. I think they said for 4 more years. And the reasoning behind that was that there's less and less demand. The people that have been running Ubiquiti, and networks have already migrated to Cambium, or have moved to Ubiquiti AC, which adds some more custom stuff, so it's not quite as easy just to take over. So there's less demand, less opportunity. Seems like the ship is setting sail.
Well, I think it was a good program while it while it lasted, and I think it was, to quote Ubiquity, I think it was very disruptive. I think it was a very shrewd move on their part, and I think it was positive for a lot of folks, and so I think it was good for them to go about that. All right. Well, that's interesting news.
Yeah. The Elevate really put the flame under Ubiquity's rear end to really get the AC stuff up and running, and I guess got GPS sync and some other things is what a lot of people say, is it really changed how people worked. And some people do claim that the elevated M5 equipment worked better than the actual hardware or the actual software from Ubiquity. So that was always a fun conversation to have. But on the RF Elements twist port, it doesn't say on their site which one it is, but I mean, it looks like it's going to be one of the symmetrical beam width ones, and maybe like a 60 degree beam is from, I'm just guessing from the picture. But those are, if you aren't using RF Elements horns or some sort of horn, and you're in high density deployment areas, I can't say that they will make a world of difference for you when you're switching from sector antenna, sectorized or like 360 antennas. It's by far and above what a lot of people are recommending to use these days.
Rock and roll, man. Yeah, I've heard a lot of folks using them, especially in specialized cases where, like you were saying, like high density or like urban environments, things like that, where they've really got to try and focus that beam, right? Seems to help a little bit.
Yeah, and I guess you're getting an EMP or a few EMPP Force 325s. Sorry to drag on this one, but the Cambium WISP around me are using those by and large, almost for all of their deployments. So, and they seem to be, and it's the Cambium's version of the Power Beam 400. And honestly, that's a really great design and super handy dandy for getting data to customers, and it's going to give you a good signal. And it's a 27 dB. Oh no, that's 27 dB of transmit power if you can have it, but that's only would be in point-to-point mode, I bet. But 25 dB antenna, really nice little deal. 300 millimeter, I'm guessing, is how wide it is, but that's really great deal, good cheap, good way to get started if you're starting a WISP or if you have a tower that you're
sounds like a good
wanting
starter
to get in.
pack, huh? Like get yourself off the ground and see how it goes,
or test it on a new tower, and just give it a run. Definitely would be the way to go.
Yeah, for sure.
For a lot of people.
So to reel it back just a second to Mike talking about the Elevate stuff, I remember at one of the mums there was like this secret meeting that a handful of people got invited to. I wasn't one of them, but some people I knew were going, and so I kind of got to tag along. So it was like free food, so obviously I was going to tag along. And it was the Cambium guys were putting it on, and they were talking about this new program they were fixing to run called Elevate, and they were talking about how they had already had the code working on the Ubiquity stuff, and they were I think they were being very cloak and dagger, because they were saying that they were looking at doing it to the Mikrotik kit as well. I'm assuming they never did it because I don't really know very many WISPs in the US that run Mikrotik stuff. So I guess there probably wasn't enough volume for them to invest the time and energy into doing it. So I guess they really just stuck with the Ubiquity stuff.
No, I'm pretty sure there's Elevate for Mikrotik.
Is there? I haven't heard of anybody doing it.
How many people do you know run Mikrotik?
Almost none. That's we're talking about like fixed base outdoor wireless. I know tons of people that run it indoors, or the wireless wire stuff is going ham. Everybody's loving that. So, and obviously routing, but yeah, like outdoor wireless, I don't really know anybody that's doing it. Cambium doesn't like chase international markets, do they?
Oh, they're trying to. They've been talking a lot about, at least in their latest investor reports, have been talking a lot about their greater markets areas, and specifically South America. I think the big one is Brazil, is where they've been, where they've had the biggest footprint increases. The rest of the world I can't recall, but it was because it was a few months ago. Was the last one I listened to, but they definitely, and you want to do that because not only because you have a bigger product base, but you also have more people installing things throughout the year. Because what's been hilarious for both the Ubiquiti and Cambium is when their market reports come out for, say, the winter months, and they're saying, well, we went down, we expected to, because people don't install stuff because it's winter time. It always drops their stock down. So that's the time to buy if you're buying Ubiquiti or Cambium stock, is when they're releasing their reports for November, December, January, February, March, April, because it will be lower.
That's clever.
And when they release, FYI, because they have larger numbers in sales.
Well, the reason I ask about the international stuff is that's what Mikrotik always says. They say, yeah, we don't really sell a lot of fixed-base wireless outdoor stuff in the U.S. Our markets are, like South America, Indonesia, Asian countries and things like that. So apparently, I guess in those countries where you don't get a lot of higher bandwidth options, right? I mean, your upstream pipe's not going to be like we have here in the States, where you're pulling 20 gigs down, and everybody's clamoring for 100 megs or whatever. If you can shoot somebody 5 megs, that's kind of the average plane or something. So I guess the Mikrotik stuff probably does pretty well out in those environments.
Well, cost effective. I mean,
yeah.
Even if it's $15 cheaper or $30 cheaper, that makes a huge difference for a guy who's making $10 a customer or something like that.
Historically, now this isn't necessarily been the case the past few years, maybe even several years, but historically, if you were a WISP of any size anywhere in the world, you were running, well, at the time Motorola, and then later Cambium, because it was the only platform that would scale at all. So if you're a WISP that's got 5, 10, 50, 200,000 customers, you were running, Motorola or Cambium, PMP, 100 or their 400 series. That's just it. Like, you just couldn't build a network that big with Mikrotik or Ubiquiti, or Lego Wave or Deliberant or Insert, Transio. You just couldn't build WISPs that big.
Was that because they had features like GPS synchronization on their access points?
Oh yeah, GPS sync would be the big one, and then also at the time, I know Mikrotik had Endstream, but most everybody else was just rocking plain 802.11, and it can't scale either, in terms of numbers of customers per access point. Once AirMax came out, once the ePMP line came out, and you started having low cost synchronizable platforms, low cost non 802.11 vanilla platforms, that really changed. But for a long time, it was Cambium or Motorola, or nothing. But then, as far as of December of last year, there were a total of 11 Mikrotik devices that you could elevate to Cambium, and they were in 2 different groups. One grouped as LHG, and the other grouped as SXT Lite. I'm assuming that's different, 5 of them probably all have the same CPU, just different antennas and stuff, so it's probably easy to lump them all together. But it looks like you had to be running 6.40.x was the originating firmware that you had to use.
That's pretty old, I think.
Yeah, but then they probably built it all back when that's what current was. And I suspect Mikrotik's, they've been working on their system security stuff, and it's probably not great yet because I haven't heard anybody talk about it being great. But I imagine over time it gets more complicated to do it, so it's probably just easier, downgrade to an earlier version of router OS and then elevate.
Yeah, they do the magic. Yeah, that's interesting. Interesting. Well, while we're talking about hardware, let's keep that ball rolling. I saw somebody, who was it? Nick Arellano posted in the Ubiquiti channel. He said that there's an $1,800 PTZ camera in the beta store now. That's 22x optical zoom, full pan tilt zoom, and it's I think it's the Ubiquiti like GT4 or something like that. So it's it's one of the newer series. Unify Protect, that's what they call them. Yeah. I thought that was interesting. Somebody right after that said, insert end of support joke here or something like that. So you guys interested in an $1,800 PTZ? So from some of the stuff I did, just a little bit of researching, people were saying that for PTZ of this power, that's actually a pretty decent price. I've not tried to price one that had 22x optical zoom. It looks pretty compact. I've never actually installed one or had need for one, but I know you've been doing a lot of camera stuff, right, Mikey?
Yeah, I mean, traditionally I've used Ubiquiti cameras, but Ubiquiti tends to wear on someone the longer you use them, and the longer you have to deal with the rest of Ubiquiti. And so with the migration to Protect, I decided that I was no longer going to participate in the Ubiquiti camera universe. And so I have been looking for options. The easiest options I'm not doing, Hikvision and Dawa, with the U.S. regulations against those. You're foolish to try. I mean, you can, but then you can't ever do any work for any government-funded operation.
Is the idea, it's not if you have those cameras in your network, you can't sell them stuff. It's you can't install them on their network. Sorry, really?
Yeah. Nope.
They say if you have this kit on your network. What if one of your customers happens to use this kit and it happens to be on your network? I mean, it's like, how far down the rabbit hole does this go? I assume it's in your infrastructure, right?
Right, yeah. Yeah, and I haven't read it myself, but I've read people paraphrasing it, and so you cannot sell them, you cannot service them, you cannot have them on, your network. Now, being an ISP, your customer's network is your customer's network. But, so, you could not... If it was an existing deployment, it sounds like you would not be eligible for, government work. And so therefore, or funding of various kinds.
That's interesting.
And so
there's got to be workarounds, right? Like, what if you treated it as if it was a customer network and you completely isolated it off?
Nope.
Yeah. Just the fact that you...
Nope.
I guess
its presence.
The government can be pretty binary, I suppose.
Well, and so some of it is that if it's on a separate network or blah blah blah, it's still there. It's still recording your business, and then thus your transactions with the federal government, and they don't want any opportunity for trying to get to
a different LLC that owns the cameras and does all of my monitoring for me, but the ISP portion, completely different legal entity.
You could probably get away with that because you would be saying.
I that probably says more about you at that point than it does about the regulation. But that said, I mean, other companies are more expensive, but not by a lot. So it's like, yes, yes, those companies are the cheapest, or yes, companies that OEM from those companies are the cheapest, but better alternatives aren't that much more. You don't have to go buy an Axis for everything and spend $1,000 just to show up. I've been looking at a company called Hanwha. They're based out of South Korea, and they used to be the Samsung surveillance security line.
Remember, yeah, you were all excited after you talked to their sales guy. Have you actually gotten any equipment or done anything else with it?
No, I've been busy with the fiber network, but their sales guy is coming out next week.
Oh, rock and roll.
Gonna do a walkthrough of the office and be like, this is what we were thinking for cameras, kind of have some hand holding on our first deployment to make wise purchase decisions, and then then do some experimentation from there.
Cool.
But so I was looking them up, and for a 2 megapixel, just standard 1080p, pan tilt zoom, 23 times zoom, they were, discounted price would be about $1,000. With a higher, I believe it has a higher IR range, slightly better frame rate, better video codecs. It'll do H.265, and then a 4K one, so you got comparable resolution. Its IR was much longer distance, again doing 265. This one only had 20 times zoom instead of 22. It was 2600. So it's like, okay, so they're right in the middle. But the software capabilities of these other Hanwhas are just vastly superior.
Bananas.
It's not even. It's not even. It's like, in these, after looking outside of the Ubiquiti and standard small business consumer type camera, video systems, they're all Fisher Price in the world. It's like they just don't even hold a candle. I could never imagine. Now seeing the other world, I could never imagine spending $1,800 on a Ubiquiti camera that does nothing compared to what everybody else does. I mean, Ubiquiti. I didn't mean for this to turn into just a big rant on Ubiquiti, but the thing is that, like,
It always does.
Is that like their thing has always been, disruptively priced, and being disruptively priced kind of makes up for some of their peculiarities, some of their lack of features and other type of stuff. But when you raise the price, this product is, it's cheaper than the other one, but it's in the ballpark. Now you go beyond skin deep to start figuring out what the details are, and don't even bother.
We'll see. I'm sure a couple of folks out there will grab them and give back reports. So
sure. There's always gonna be someone willing to buy Ubiquiti products, and I'm sad for them.
Come on, man. Ubiquiti makes some decent stuff. They make some good stuff. Some of the
decent stuff
is kind of crazy, but some of it's. You know what? I kind of like that scrappy Ubiquiti spirit, because you never know what's going to come out of that joint, right? So it's interesting.
That is a very optimistic way of looking at that.
Yeah, you can get yourself a camera necklace.
Everybody likes surprises, right? It's like Christmas Day. Every time they have one of their their release cycles are quarterly or something like that. So they're going to announce a new thing every quarter. So there you go. It's like a little surprise for you. So
yeah.
while we're talking about hardware, the Mikrotik Net Lite, Mikrotik Net Power Lite 7R, which I said now with 100% more video, because this is the first product announcement where they actually had a video ready to go ahead of time, demoing the product. I actually made a joke to Normus about when am I going to see your face on one of these videos. So I'm not sure if he's interested in getting in front of the camera, but I would have a really good time photoshopping it, or maybe doing some deep fake stuff on there. So we really got to get 100% more Normus, or rather Giannis on these things. Normus would be fun too, but I think Giannis is really, that's what I want to see.
I wonder if we could get someone on Fiverr to make one. Just take various clips of Giannis at the mums, and be like, okay, here's a sampling of video and audio of Giannis. Can you make Giannis do this?
Do a deep fake. I think I have to have like high res stuff, so we might have to get him to sit down in front of a camera for us personally. Anyway, let's get to the hardware really quick before I get any nasty emails from him. Looking at the hardware, I think it's part of their G-Pen series, right? Which is that it's kind of their version of GPON, but instead of copper, or rather instead of fiber, it's going to be copper stuff. This is one of those, the R stands for reverse. So the clients actually send power, over the copper to this thing to theoretically power it. So the idea being, you've got a bunch of customers out there. If one of them still maintains power, then your device will still maintain power. So I guess it's kind of an interesting model. It's 8 gig ports, and 2 SFP plus ports. Pricing's coming around at $130, which sounds really nice until you find out that it's Switch OS only, and then it's less interesting to me. I'm really not super stoked about the Switch OS stuff, but I would love to see this. I mean, this form factor, I guess, is okay. It's a lighter port density, but it is weather hardened, right? They're talking about installing it in damp attics or elevator shafts. I'm not sure why the attics need to be damp, but apparently there's a lot of damp attics where people are installing these things. I think it's an interesting product for somebody, just not for me. What do you guys think?
For like an MDU setup, I was actually just talking to our new guy about like how this specific product would have made our lives a little bit easier at an install, because it was the 2-story house that like the upper story is rented and the lower story is rented out to 2 different people. And we already had the bottom house, the bottom apartment as a customer, and we were doing the upper floor, and it's like, oh well, we can just run a line to the nano beam, and because the nano beams have 2 ports on them, don't have to set up another antenna, etc., all the other nice things. No extra holes in the customer's house. So the benefit for this is that over just doing that is that each customer could get a PoE, power the switch here, and then the switch would power the nano beam, and then if one customer leaves, unplugs, loses power, doesn't pay their power bill, dog pees on the PoE injector,
right,
or whatever, you don't lose, the other customer doesn't go down, and quite possibly the first customer doesn't lose internet access as well. So there's a lot of benefits in that, and for $130, that's about the price for CPE. So if you have 2 customers at a location and you just want to use one single antenna, you've got a pretty compelling product in my opinion.
Well, yeah, I mean, because usually if you see a Mikrotik product that has PoE in, it's usually a single port, right? So I guess if you didn't want to, if you wanted to slap this on the outside of an MDU and you didn't want to run dedicated power to it, and you wanted redundancy, you could, have multiple PoEs, and it doesn't necessarily mean you have to do that, but you could have two different customers doing PoE in, because we have had apartment complexes where that's what they do. If they don't pay their electrical bill, they'll just go in there and cut their power off, which in the past was bad sometimes, because we would pull power from somebody's apartment, and inevitably that person would move out, so then they would go in there and just flip the breakers. It's like, dude, we put a note on everything. It says, do not do this, and, we'd still get the call. But normally, whenever we'd see a power outage, it was the whole complex. It wasn't just an individual. So I guess it's not going to save you from everything.
Yeah.
Well, I've made the joke before, if the power's out, of course nobody's going to call you about the internet being out, but they absolutely do call you.
False.
Yeah.
False. That is a dirty lie, Greg.
That statement
Dirty,
was shown to be
filthy lie.
false. Yeah, good times. All right. So somebody was talking about, it might have even been Landon, who ultimately found this interesting script. Or no, it was somebody else. Maybe it was Chad. I think it was Chad was talking about a customer wanted 100% uptime SLA from him. And I have very definite opinions about this from being in 100% SLA environment for over 10 years. That is, it's insanity. And we did it on the internet. We covered the internet. Yeah, just full stop.
It's like,
yeah. But, the environment we were in, we offered it to everybody. That was part and parcel. If you came in, I was going to give you 100% SLA on the internet. And we went through a lot of hoops to do that. But ultimately, nothing, right? No system is perfect. I like to liken it to being in traffic. And 100% SLA says, I'm never going to get into another car accident again. It's like you can't guarantee that. I can't control what everybody else on the road is doing, right? I might be 100% doing everything, being as defensive as I can, and then some guy T-bones me out of nowhere. And that's kind of what I think about 100% SLAs. So I think really, if you're going to ever attempt to do something like that, my opinion is definitely put your expectations in writing, exactly what 100% SLA to you is. So I've seen various incarnations of it. I've seen some people's SLA say that we will give you 100% uptime to the core of our network. So what does that mean? You're going to be able to hit the core switches or core routers 100% of the time. So all of the internet can go down. That's fine because you're still maintaining your SLA to the core of the network, right? So it's sometimes that stuff gets a little bit tricky, or and I'm not a big fan of that because that feels like a bait and switch to me. Because it's like if you're in a data center saying that you're going to maintain 100% uptime to the two switches you're connected to, that's a pretty easy thing to do. But
it's almost expected.
Yeah,
it's like you should just do that.
The customer's expectation when you're saying that is internet connectivity. I know that that's what they're expecting. They know that's what they're expecting. If the paperwork says different, to me, that reads as a lie. So I'm not a big fan of that. So I think really setting expectations on this stuff. I think John Osmond was saying that he would just slap a crazy price tag on it, and then everybody would say, no, that's okay. We don't really need it. And I'm kind of
what he said. He said crazy price tag, and that he would only refund up to like 50% of the monthly payment in any single month.
There you go. There you go.
I know it's it was 45%, I think, because it's still guaranteed that even if there was a complete outage, he would still be money ahead for having to deal with them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
that's a great policy. I'll charge you twice as much and give you less than half of it back when I screw up.
Well, also thinking about it too, like this, most of the folks that most of the folks that listen to this podcast are going to be WISP, right? The people you're servicing, I mean, you're shooting from a tower to their radio, and there's a lot of unknowns, right? You can't control Mother Nature. You don't know when that lightning's going to strike. You don't know when a squirrel's going to chew through their cable, right? And it's the perception is it's always your fault. Even if it's something completely out of your control, it's always your fault. So, do you really want to assume that kind of liability? Now, if it's crazy money, like if it's insane money and they're willing to, write a favorable contract, I mean, I guess you could take a few whippings and still get the cash, and you can overbuild to try and maybe mitigate that. But I don't know. It's tough. It's a tough sell for me. Like, I would only offer 100% SLA inside of a building, inside of the data center, where I control all of the environment. It's like even then, it was so tough to do. Like, I mean, I could basically name my ulcers after all of our carriers in there. You know, just the heartache associated with trying to maintain that. I can't even begin to fathom trying to do that outside of a controlled environment.
You can't, like, if there's something that you can't control, and they especially if the other person's gonna try and think of it as like best effort, like you were just up a creek without a paddle. That's I feel so sorry for you. Yeah. Oh man. But
it's pretty nuts.
I mean, all SLA like that, you really just relies on a boatload of redundancy, and eventually, you're probably, honestly, at that, it's, what would it cost me to build all that redundancy, one, to you, and then secondarily pay for somebody else to have that redundancy to you, so that I can rely on them to have that 100% uptime. Because some stuff's gonna break. You can't have a single piece of equipment anywhere along the line, and which means the customer can't have a single piece of equipment that they're using. For me, it's like, sheesh.
Yeah.
It would be not fun.
Well, I mean,
But
even then, stuff happens that, you know what I mean? It's like the idea of making something idiot-proof. They're always going to make a better idiot, right? So it's, I remember one time I had an internet outage because I had a fiber circuit leased through FiberLight going up to Dallas, right? And I was hitting 1950 stemons and I was picking up Tilly up there. And then I had a direct DIA from Centurylink in the data center, and then I had transport that was going to Houston, and I was picking up Cogent. And that Cogent circuit, so I had 3 providers, right? So I could lose 2, and I was golden. So that Cogent circuit, they migrated it to a different set of fiber in a maintenance window without informing us. So it ended up in the same tube as Centurylink somewhere along the line. Centurylink had a cut, so I lost both of those. They had a cut like in Conroe, like south of Houston. So all of a sudden I lost both of those circuits. And I was like, that's okay. I still have FiberLight, which is okay-ish. They would blink about 6 times a year. Every time I would contact them, they would never be able to figure out what happened, right? It would just magically have blinked. So no big deal. All I've got to do is have this circuit not blink for 8 hours. Guess what FiberLight decided to do in the middle of the day while everything else was down? It blinked, right? And so it's like, it's just you. Sometimes life just comes at you in unexpected and interesting ways that you can't anticipate. Nobody likes having those conversations. Luckily, FiberLight waited until 30 minutes after the other circuits came up to blink again for some mysterious reason. Never got a resolution as to why we had those 2 blinks. I think they probably just have random techs somewhere that are like running jumpers or something and unplug something else just to test a piece of equipment. Yeah, I got light that time. All right, must be something. Yeah, I mean, I have no idea what's going on. They have no idea what's going on inside their network, which boggles my mind. Because I've asked them before. I was like, can you just check the activity log of all your techs in the area? And like, well, we don't keep that. It's like, okay. Well, all right then. It's beyond me. I don't want to dump on those guys because sometimes you don't have a lot of options, and they're usually pretty good, and they're decent dudes. It's just, man, sometimes they would have bad days that made me have bad weeks.
Yeah, I guess a tangent off of that. As we were spinning up our fiber network and looking to increase our capacity, not because we're using up our existing infrastructure, but when you're selling sometimes 100 meg DSL, you don't have to have a lot of buffer room to be able to sell a lot of 100 meg pipes. When you start selling multi 100 megabit fiber or gigabit fiber, now a gigabit connection is not going to do, because if there's any traffic, then they're not going to be able to get it. Yeah. So trying to evaluate, which circuits do we have and upgrade and whatnot. And so right now we're pretty fortunate in that we know where the one provider goes, because they don't. There's only one way from A to Z, so we know where they're at. We know where the second provider goes, assuming they're telling us accurate information. You know, like they gave us a whole listing of, you know, from port 7 on this device to port 8 at this device, and you know they're in different towns, so they're getting pretty precise with where the routing goes. But who's to say it's correct? If they're correct, well then yeah, then that's fully diverse as well. And so looking to have to do the upgrades, it's like, well, there's one more company building in, and it's going to be their own fresh route. So I know it's completely diverse. So I want to buy on that, or you know, do a fiber swap or something on it. But how long does it take for them to get theirs ready? So that's what I really want, but I might have to upgrade one of the others first, and then. So I don't know. I'll have to figure that out.
It's always something. Always something. So in the spirit of high availability, Landon posted up a Mikrotik HA script he found. It's actually to somebody's GitHub repo. This fellow's been running this script, and I guess he's been slowly tuning it, improving it in his production environment for several years now. I think since 2016, so going on 4 years. And it seems pretty interesting. Supposedly you take two like routers, right, of same make and model, and you know, I mean, you definitely want to run the same OS on them, or firmware version, and you cable them together so you've got kind of your HA link in between, and then they do communication in between. And so it's supposedly intelligently, if you save the configuration on the primary unit, it will push that config over to the standby unit, and it looks like the failover is actually pretty fast on it when it does all that stuff. I'm looking at his script, his HA script that you load on the primary that gets pushed over to the slave, and it's like 623 lines, so he's got a good bit of stuff in there. I'm assuming there's some VRRP. I think they were talking about some race conditions, so I think it even assumes MAC addresses. I think it's sharing maybe MACs in between and configuring the identical IPs on various interfaces that aren't communicating with VRRP. So a little bit of kung fu in there, so a little bit of danger. You might, it seems like that HA link, you'd want to run two cables and do kind of a bond just in case you had a cable failure to prevent against that, because you don't want them both. What do you call that? Like bifurcation. There's a bifurcation. You have two devices that both think they need to be master. That can be problematic. So I'm not exactly sure. I haven't dug into how a script works, but it sounds interesting. And Landon was saying he was having good results playing with it so far.
Yeah, he's got it in his house and been running it. And I guess this guy's using it in his production. Last I checked in on this project, it was still kind of testy, codey stuff, but I mean, that's kind of cool that it's still up and progressing, and it's using relatively, usable hardware for a WISP, the CCR 1009. I mean, I haven't looked at the script at all, but it could be pretty adaptable to most of the CCR line, or even like a 4011. I think that's what Landon was saying he was using. I can't recall, but
something this tickles my memory here. Something about, was it version 7 had some kind of firewall synchronization, NAT synchronization, something like that? What
NAT synchronization, NAT and connection tracking.
There you go.
Synchronization.
Right, which makes it smoother, because I'm assuming he hasn't tried to rig some kind. I don't know how you could rig that between devices, and so theoretically in this HA failover, right, if the primary fails, you go to the secondary, well, all of those NAT entries are no longer valid, so all those connections are going to fail, and then they'll just have to reestablish, and everything's okay. But like in the Mikrotik instance, right, with that NAT synchronization, the connection table synchronization, if you failed the primary over to the secondary, all that state information exists, so theoretically your connections could kind of pick up and move. That's how a lot of firewalls do it, like the ASAs, and I'm sure the FortiGates and everything else.
Yeah, it looks like this is just doing configuration. Yeah, so yeah, this is just doing configuration synchronization. So it'll synchronize the firewall, and NAT rules, stuff like that, that you would need definitely to have synchronized. We actually sort of would have been, this wouldn't, but I multi-homed my network last spring, and I didn't add in firewall rules for our VoIP system, the Metaswitch, and we got an email last week from our IntelliQuint or something like that, and they were saying, hey, there's been we've noticed some really nasty activity from you guys. You better start cleaning up your act, so I guess we'd firewalled the Metaswitch on the one router that it was going out of initially, but when I multi-homed, traffic could get to that Metaswitch from two different directions, and the second direction wasn't firewalled to protect it.
Ouch.
So that's why you firewall in front of each device. Dagnabbit. But no, that would be reasonable to do. That's not going to happen in my network. But yeah, that's definitely would be a benefit for there if you can, if you can pull out the high availability stuff and just have, hey, just synchronize them with Unimis, and make certain that everything's all the same. But that's one benefit there, and some other stuff. But yeah, you wouldn't get the connection tracking across. I don't think there's any way to add in connections with scripts. It's not quite that powerful. So, but version 7, if this guy updates his code for it, it'll be awesome.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if version 7's going to have all those synchronization capabilities, it makes me wonder if they're not moving towards something like this that would be built in, right? Clicky click, that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, it could be that it would be the way to go. And it does look like this guy, so he is running 644.1. 644.6. So he is update. You don't have to run. Another reason I didn't play around with this script much is that you're having to run really, really old Mikrotik firmware to use it. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. So he has been updating, and 64446 has all the patches for a bunch of the vulnerabilities and such that Mikrotik had last year, if I recall correctly. So
very nice.
Put this in your cores, guys.
No, I think about it. There's good ways to do kind of redundancy using like VRRP, which is kind of a first hop gateway redundancy protocol where they can communicate and things like that, and then using routing protocols. I think I would be okay with the slight interruption as things kick over. Sometimes when you layer too much complexity in, it just breaks in crazy bonkers ways that you can't figure out. So sometimes keeping it a little bit more simple is, but this is always interesting as a exercise to play with, see it moving and all that stuff. So maybe not for me, but maybe it is for somebody. So I have another one of those quick questions for you guys. I mean, we're not that deep into it yet, but I have been working on another demo. I'm always trying to come up with like demos. It's so crazy. Red Hat is like so loose on the reins. Like I kind of have free reign to do whatever, which makes me, I think they're using reverse psychology because it makes me a little bit more paranoid. So I like do more things just to make sure that I'm not falling behind or something like that. So I came up with the idea of there's a guy that I work with, Michael Ford, super good guy, really smart. He came up with this way of integrating Servicenow with Ansible Tower, right? So Servicenow is like a self-service portal. It's like one of those ITIL based things, which to me, I hate that stuff. That's kind of, whatever. I'm not gonna get into that. I'm not a big fan of that stuff. But anyway, the idea is customers can go in there and like his demo is they order a t-shirt size on like AWS. So they say, give me 5 medium servers, and it'll call tower and it'll provision all that stuff. And I was thinking, what's something networking based that would be interesting that a customer could go in there and do that pertain to networking? So I came up with self-service troubleshooting. So I've actually got it working. I'm just working on the blog post now, so I'm going to have it up next week. But the idea being, a user can't get to a TCP-based service, right? So it's like a website or like FTP or SSH or some bullchive like that. So they go into Servicenow, they pull up the form, they put in their machine name, which is, like in the top right of their desktop, and then they put in the service they can't get to. So say, for example, CraigSowell.com, they can't get there. And then they click submit, it calls tower, it throws all that information over. What it does is, based on their machine name, I'm using WinRM, which is Windows Remote Management. It's because they don't like natively have SSH support into Windows, unfortunately. So it allows you to connect over to them. So I connect to that client's PC, and I do kind of like a PowerShell version of curl. So I test that website, and then I test from the domain controller, and then I test from a canary outside their network. And if their device fails, I then connect to an ASA, and I use Packet Tracer, which creates a virtual packet, and it runs it based on their source and the destination they're going to and the protocols and ports they're using. So it runs that virtual packet through. So it takes all that information, aggregates it, and kind of does a triage. So it's like, if the user can't get there but everything else says clean, then send it to this team to look at. And if this happens and this, then send it to this team and like mark it and mark the ticket for all that stuff. And if everything comes back clean, then reply to the customer saying, hey, try it again, because it's probably working now. So I kind of like came up with like a triage system, I guess. I was trying to think of other interesting things like that. Like a user could go in and do a thing that would do things networking wise. Do you guys have any ideas of like what you would come up with? Like a self-service based network thing. That was the most interesting one I could think of, mostly because I don't like dealing with users. And if I could take care of a lot of that for me without having to actually contact them, that was pretty cool. Yeah. So maybe help your support team. Because I think like an average ticket where somebody gets one of these things can take like 30-40 minutes between doing all the steps and talking to all the people. If it could cut that down drastically, because some of these folks, I was talking to somebody yesterday that has like 30,000 users out in the field. So they've got to be getting multiple calls a day like this, right? So they're basically burning probably 2 full employees doing just this crap, right? And if you could automate that away, give them all that time back, they could actually do important things. So I know it's kind of a different world, a different mindset to think, I'm in an enterprise now, but I'm really trying to come up with use cases for a self-service. Like somebody could go to a self-service portal and it's going to do a thing. So this is so barely networking. I guess the networking troubleshooting and touching the firewall, that to me that said networking. But what else? Can you guys think of anything? And as well as the listeners, if you guys have anything in mind.
What you just said, I can't. I think it might be a Facebook ad, because that's about the only place that I see advertisements anymore these days. And it's an ad that says, why is some person's internet not working? And supposedly it's supposed to like go through and like do all the checks and say, this is why he's not working. He's turned off because he didn't pay his bill, or his router interface is dropping. And then there's also I think not obvious. There's another router / switch company that was selling something kind of like that to me last year. I can't recall, but that would be, that's a super handy feature in that there's a level of like level 1 diagnostic that all it is run these things at these locations. There's a reason why entry level techs do that, because all you have to do is follow the script and do that. And if it's just a script that you're following, and you can do that with Ansible, and that's super handy. And that would be really beneficial for even for a small WISP, that okay, your front desk person, they're great with the booking software. They're great on the phone talking to people, but they have no idea how to do basic diagnostics. And their idea of a router is some box. They don't even understand how any of that works. So if you can like minimize your layer 1 tech support people, that frees up your layer 2, so that, like, for me, I don't have to do all that diagnostics with a customer on the phone. Like, it's really frustrating sometimes. Like, a customer will call in, and then it gets back to me, and then I have to, like, race through all the stuff to be like, okay, what's going on? Otherwise, the person just has to sit on the phone with either the deadline, or I have to try to talk and to the person while I'm doing all this checks. And when it's really just if that could be done and presented to me in a nice little report, like, oh, yep, access points up, their router's up, this is happening, all that stuff, like all those little checks it would be beneficial even for the customer, because they don't have to sit on the phone for 10 minutes chatting with me, as much as I'm a great conversationalist. People love me for it. They don't want to talk to me. Your customer doesn't want to talk to you. They just want the internet to work. And so if you can make whatever that problem is go away quicker for them. There was another, isn't it Calix that's got like auto testing stuff that the person, like, yeah, I think it might have been Calix is what I was thinking about, is they have like that auto testing, and like, hey, when they're like maxing out their bandwidth, it'll pop up the little thing saying, oh, you're maxing out your bandwidth. Try to sell them more bandwidth. Like that's I bet Ansible can look at an interface, and can it look at an interface and like see how much utilization's happening on it?
Yeah, I mean, you could tell it to do anything.
Full SNMP?
Yeah.
Okay. So, make me a sandwich.
So yeah, like in a Mikrotik, it can jump in and pull any piece of information you want and do whatever, act upon it in whatever way you want. Or like I said, like I'm having it connect to Windows clients and perform action. So anything I can do from, anything I could tell that customer to do, I can do remotely without having to involve said customer. And the idea being that it can all happen the instant they click the button, and they don't even know it's happening, right? It's going in and performing all the tests for them. So that's the network troubleshooting. I thought, because I can pull pings and trace routes, and I can aggregate all that stuff as well. I don't think I could ever do full resolution all the way through, because that's just going to get too complicated. And a lot of times, you know how the internet is, right? Something doesn't work for 10 minutes, and then it comes back. If it's something out in the cloud, or there's some route reconvergence at one, there's a million different things. So a lot of times it's, by the time the tech actually takes a look at it, it could have already have been resolved.
Fixed itself.
Yeah. But
that's why they say reboot the router, and then people think rebooting the router is what solves the problem.
Yeah.
Not.
You just need to wait another couple minutes. So I don't know. If you guys or the listeners come up with any scenarios, I'm really looking for any kind of really compelling use case that would speak to you that I could show people. And everything I make, I put up on GitHub, and I write a blog post to show you exactly how I'm doing it. So, if you can give me a good idea and it solves your use case, all the better, right? Helps both of us out. Oh, man. Somebody told me that on the phone the other day that automation, like on networking, they said just configuration push. That's so boring. It's like we wanted to do something better than that. I was like, oh, okay. Well, what do you want to see it do? I was just thinking, is configuration push, is that old news? Is that boring? Does that bore you guys? I thought that was still like cool and sexy. Apparently not.
I mean, I guess. Go, Mike.
I was gonna say it. I mean, I still struggle with doing half the things I should be doing. So I'm not gonna holding reservations against somebody whose config push is sexy, because quite frankly, I don't. Other than occasional.
I mean, all the management software that I have seen, like Cambium, Ubiquiti, Mimosa's management stuff doesn't really do a lot of config pushing ish. But like basically all the big ones are gonna have like, okay, it will manage a configuration for X, Y, and Z thing for you. But like that you could have a single thing that does management for everything, like that's useful in my opinion, because I hate so much. I might stop using Cambium routers. It's just because like I hate having to have 5 different windows on like 2 different screens when I'm walking through diagnostics. I just want, or like when I'm trying to do config and this is what I want everything to be. That's super convenient. It's just saying, okay, we're gonna go in here and this is how it's going to build that out. That said, I don't have time for, heck, I don't even have time to manage my own network right now. We're short installers and stuff. So, I wish I had implemented some level of automation back when I had some free time, just because, there's my Proxmox server. Every week, I gotta go in and delete old backups because otherwise the hard drives get full. Sure, we could add more hard drives to that, but that costs money. And takes time to do all that stuff. So we just don't.
It's such a chicken or egg problem with
Yeah.
automation. You know that it'll save you time, but you don't have time to learn the thing that will save you time. It's sucks.
Yeah. It definitely, but like there's so many of those like little things. Have air control, go out and do diagnostics. I don't know if Ansible could technically do that, but like just those like discovery and making certain all the customers' antennas are updated and stuff like that. Like I know Ansible could go out and update all of my Mimosa, all of my well, I don't know about Mimosa because it doesn't have an SSH client. But you could figure something out, I'm certain, with curl. But like you could have everything get updated. All my customer routers are becoming Mikrotiks nowadays. Make certain they all stay up to frickin' date.
Yeah.
Like,
or like
that would be,
say you guys are changing your DNS servers, then you could have it connect to every one of those devices and automatically change all those entries for you without having to worry about it.
oh yeah, I have firewall lists in both of my core routers that says, hey, if anybody's using this NTP server, we should go change that. And there's hundreds of devices still using, no, maybe not hundreds, probably about 100, probably still, just because we've never got around to doing that.
Right.
And the task I gave to the guy, he got sick and left, so it didn't get done. So there's a lot of things like that you could conceivably do and make your life a lot easier. So if you get time this winter when you're not installing stuff on people's towers or on towers, maybe try playing around with Ansible. Actually, I wanted to call back a little bit. I didn't realize the NetPower had SFP ports.
Yeah,
and
it's SFP Plus, I think. I think it's got 2 of those jokers.
Yeah, SFP Pluses. So that reminds me of my use of the rest of the line of their like GPen line, is that I'm actually using the GPen 21, which has this little PoE out, PoE in, SFP box as an ONT for some fiber customers we're doing for active Ethernet. Just because it's like, I think $18 or something like that. I can't remember exactly how much, but it's ridiculous. $22 is what Double Radius sold them to us for. So it's like ridiculously cheap, and you're like, sure, you're running Switch OS, but really cheap. ONT for customers. So ONT being the thing that terminates the fiber and sends Ethernet into the customer's house, because I'm not going to deal with Ethernet or fiber in the customer's home. Like, that's just super handy dandy little thing, and that's a lot cheaper if you're just needing a fiber to copper converter. that's a lot cheaper than most fiber to, even Mikrotik's own fiber to copper converter that's unmanaged. So just keep that in mind. I've been having a lot of great success with that, and the GPen line is really interesting in that it gives you a lot of different options for like little things you can do just in random things. And GPen 21 has VLAN support, which is what I want. So yeah, super handy little deals. And I wonder how many people are actually going to use the GPen portion of Mikrotik stuff instead of just using GPens in other applications.
Oh, like
just
use it
because
for the designed use, that kind of thing?
Yeah,
Like
actually use
put
it for its design use case. Yeah, I'm not running Ethernet like that. Gee, only Ned know. But I know there's a ton of people who've used the GPens for extending copper up a tower like over 300 feet runs. That's been most of what I've heard of people using. But
Yeah, and it seems
GPen
like
21.
good duct tape. Like if you, in some weird situation where you need to get copper a really long way, you can. I mean, that's what they're designed for, right? To string multiple of these little jokers together, and they repeat the signal for you. So that'd be pretty cool.
So
I could see it if you were like a 5 gigahertz WISP, and you had a customer that just had trees, but on the other side of the trees, it was completely clear line of sight, and the other side was 400 feet away. All right, throw out a GPen.
Yeah, and solves the problem. You don't have to do anything special. I have to find power somewhere. Most of the time in those situations, we just find power and do to a wireless point-to-point through the trees, just because it's so short, and you can do 2.4 through some trees and not have much problems. But I mean, yeah, Mikrotik's coming up with some really cool accessories that are just really useful. And the GPen, it's a Jeeper, actually, is what we were talking about, is the PoE extender. And it's got an IP67 case now, so keep that in mind.
That's right. So you can you could drop those jokers in water, right?
Yep. Well, a couple inches of water.
Yeah, don't submerge them on the side of your submarine, but you can actually use them.
So.
All right, Mike. Try and limit yourself to like 5 minutes on this one, bud. More Zhone complaining. Let's see how much you can compress. Dude, that Zhone channel is probably the hottest ticket in town on Little Brothers, and I ignore all of it. I just scroll right by it. All this Zhone bull chive you guys are over there spouting about. All right, let's hear it. Keep it, because you could talk for 3 hours, so don't kill everybody with it, but let's hear it.
Sure. Yeah, I know it. So it's I'll just complain about the things I've had in the past 7 days. So they have, it's you have the OLT, chassis at your central office, and in the GPON world, the OLT does the bulk of the provisioning work. You don't log into a CPE radio or a DSL modem and configure, this VLAN does this, and here's my password for that. No, all of that entry is done on the chassis. Zhone has a web GUI that manages their chassis.
So that configuration, I'm going to interrupt you real quick. Is that like TR69, or is that like proprietary per vendor, how it actually communicates?
So there is a standard within GPON, and if everybody followed the standard, everything is kosher. Except people don't.
Yeah, nobody. I'm assuming.
No, I mean, you'll find companies that are pretty well open, but like Calyx is not. I think the underlying standard protocol, whatever it's called, OMCI. Yeah, that's what does all the busy work. And so, yeah, I suppose if you want to solve a big challenge, Greg. You could work on GPON orchestration.
I'm not on. I'm on commercial. So I'm central. I'm central accounts. So it's like you go
Sure.
from Chicago, this strip down through. I think Colorado is actually in my territory, bud. So I might get to go visit you, or Mikey. I mean, you're both in central. But yeah, commercial. And I am not ISP. I am not SLED. So I'm not education. I'm just the cool stuff.
Zhone does have a commercial line.
Do they know?
Yeah, it's similar units but a little bit differently, targeted towards the enterprise space using GPON in the enterprise.
So like you would like each cubicle would have its own ONT to connect it back to the network.
I didn't get that far, but
You just know
could
it
be.
exists. Yeah.
I just know it exists.
All right. Well, tell me about this web page that you're having problems with.
Yeah. And so there's a lot of stuff that you can do in this in the central management platform, but not everything. So you still have to go to the command line for some stuff. And if you make something in the in some parts of the web interface, when you configure something, say your administrator password for the ONTs, which are the modems for CPE. That's what it is forever in the web GUI. I mean, you can change it, but it doesn't apply it. You have to go into the chassis CLI if you wish to change your administrator password after you've associated the chassis with the platform. If you want to set up Wi-Fi on one of your ONTs, the only way to do so through the central management platform is to force the SSID and password at initial configuration to some value, which is fine. But if your modem has to resync its configuration for whatever reason, it will overwrite whatever the end user has customized their SSID or password to be, which is encouraged if you make them all the same, because it's forcing you to in the template. So instead, you provision the unit through the web GUI, SSH into the chassis, delete half the stuff you just provisioned, and rebuild it with a command line that adds in the Wi-Fi interfaces. Because otherwise, you join, it'll broadcast this the SSID. You can join it. You just won't go anywhere. So that's awesome. What other fun stuff have I encountered this past week? After a certain amount of time, the chassis just stops accepting SSH connections. So you can't, then you have to telnet in. So you can't disable telnet on the device because SSH will eventually stop working. Unsure yet if it's time, numbers of connections, numbers of hung connections. I got time with support earlier this week, and lo and behold, SSH worked, so she couldn't troubleshoot it. Come the next day, one of my employees was trying to go in to do something, and he couldn't because SSH wasn't responding. So that was lovely.
I take it back. This is fun. Let's keep doing this, Mike.
Let's see here. So there's a system called Cpe Manager, which can be very useful. It creates a dedicated VLAN between the chassis and all the ONTs. It auto assigns them IPs out of a completely different subnet. It doesn't route those IPs. What it does is it sets up effectively a NAT to get to the management plane on those ONTs. So it's great if you don't want to build a management network for the ONTs, because it can do it for you. But apparently, so like through the central web platform, you can right click on any of the ONTs and choose Launch Web UI. and it'll connect into the chassis. It'll set up the, effectively NAT forward, and then it'll bring you right to the web GUI for that ONT. Sounds great. And they're pretty repeatable in terms of, if your ONT has, this, assignment number on it, it should always have the same ports. Until there's apparently I haven't quite figured out the details. Zhone told me that there's a 200 ONT limit on this. So once you get to 200 ONTs, you can't do any more through the Cpe Manager. Well, Ollie's saying that he's used 400 CPE with it, and it worked, so he's not sure what the 200 limit is. But if you ever manually create one of those NAT setups, all of the web ones then stay. They're supposed to automatically time out after a certain amount of time. Once you create one manual one, they will all always stay until you manually delete all of them, one at a time.
That's weird, man.
The point of Cpe Manager is so that you don't have to, in a huge network, there's going to be a limit as to the number of IPs that are going to be unique available. 10/8 is only 16 million. And you're not going to get all 16 million in one big, chunk. You're going to lose a bunch due to subnetting and whatnot. And then effectively that makes your 10 useless elsewhere in your network. So Cpe Manager is the solution for that, because it doesn't, each subnet that it makes is unique to that chassis. Except apparently there's a 200 CPE limit on a device that can do 512 CPEs. And it's supposed to be used in huge scalable networks. So I don't know how a 200 CPE limit is at all useful. I don't know how this dynamic thing is actually reliable or not. If I had 20 million customers, I'd want to be pretty damn sure that I knew how to contact the CPE.
That seems like such an arbitrary number too. 200. You know what I mean? It's not like it's not like any even bit division or anything like that.
Yeah, couldn't tell you. So thankfully I don't have to worry about those sorts of scale issues. And so I've been talking with Ali about, what would he think about just creating a dedicated management VLAN and just doing it old school. I'm just going to give it an IP address, a private IP for management, and just call it a day. So we're, hashing out the pros and cons of that, if it's worth it. I mean, right now there's not a problem, but it's like eventually I would like to have faith in my ability to contact the CPE without going to the customer's prem.
So
I had
just as a slight qualification, if you're using the /10 or the 10 dot network, you would get 16 million. But if you could throw in the 172 network, you could add in another million.
All right. When I get to those scales, I will keep that in mind.
Yeah. No, you are. God, that just sounds like a miserable day. There's no.
Let's see here. What other things did I run into in the past week? Oh, so one of these ONTs. So in GPON, there's channel number assignments, effectively, per ONT on a given OLT. OLT being in the radio world, it's like an access point and a CPE in one domain. You statically assign, this CPE is CPE number 1 and number 2 and number 3 and so on. Apparently, in my web management platform, which they call ZMS, Zone Management System or something like that, apparently the number 1 slot is broken. because I put a CPE on it. It says that it's enabled, but down. But yet it tells me what model number it is and what firmware it has, which only happens when it's up. I can move that same unit to a different number, say 2. Works fine.
It could be just like in Cisco, in their switching stuff, like VLAN 1001 to 1004 are set aside for legacy stuff, like old FDDI and Token Ring. Maybe it's something like that. Like it's, like one of those.
On the chassis, it works fine. On the chassis, it reports everything fine. It says it's up, it says this, it says that, it says that. It's just the web interface for channel 1 doesn't work.
Oh, man. I don't know, dude.
Mike, I'm so glad I dodged this bullet, because I seriously looked at doing DASAN for our project, and I feel way less crazy for just using all these random pieces of equipment and doing active Ethernet to the home.
Now, that said, I think that particular problem is just a bug in my particular implementation. I don't think it's a platform limitation. Because at one point it worked fine. Just now it doesn't. And support said, told me to try some stuff out, try different things and report back to them. And I've tried a couple other ONTs of a couple different models on port 1, and they've all had the same result. So I'm going to circle back saying it's nothing to do with that particular ONT. It's just that one port, and it's probably some bad value in the database on the management platform. Some cell got hung or whatever, but it'll need some manual cleaning out probably. But it's like, why? On the Zhone, on the management platform, when I started, version 3.3 apparently was in full production, customer release, probably even on the recommended path. They gave me version 3.2. I don't know any better. 3.2, okay, great, let's install that. So now every time I log into the support portal, it doesn't know what I have. It just tells me, hey, ZMS version 3.3 is, update whatever is the recommended version. Okay, support. Can I get version 3.3 update whatever? You're on 3.2 now, right? Yeah. Well, you can't upgrade from 3.2 to 3.3. You will have to rebuild all of your templates. That are the crux of the provisioning platform. You can add your chassis to it, and they'll show up, and they'll work fine, but you won't be able to push any templates until you build new ones from scratch, which is the most complicated part of the whole thing.
How nice of them to not charge you for this update.
Well, I am paying for support. It's not very much though. It's like $100 a year or something like that.
Yeah.
Zhone, for Zhone silver level support. There are various quirks with the platform, to which I will be cataloging, I'm sure, over the next few months. But their paid support is very reasonably priced. To the point where I pay for support on the CPE because it's like $2. Or $3 or $5 or something, like it's insignificant.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, I will pay that. I'll pay that forever just to be able to call you when it gets retarded. I guess I probably can't say that word these days.
No.
When it gets dumb, I can't say that either. Bad. When it gets bad.
Mentally impaired.
But and the support, well, this last support person was a pleasure to work with. went through and showed me all kinds of stuff. You can do this, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this. Oh, that's all right. So I have that SSH session logged, so now I can see what I can do. But yeah, no, I'm sure I'll be circling back with more peculiarities.
Amazing. Well, I had a fun story I wanted to tell you guys. Just something to kind of close out things on a fun note, an interesting note. So after we recorded the last podcast, what was that? That was Saturday 2 weeks ago. So then the next morning, I'm getting up to edit the podcast because I usually edit on Sunday mornings and then kind of upload it or whatever. And my wife goes, "Hey, I got a text message," because I heard it like at 6 in the morning. She goes, I got a text message from Gavin. This is my 14-year-old son. It says this. It says, "Hey, I clogged the toilet with a potato. Don't ask any questions." That was the text. So I'm already thinking, man, this is gonna ruin my morning. I'm just gonna have to jack with this toilet potato situation for a lot longer than I wanted to. So we contemplated it for a second. So from various Googling and research we found, they said, hey, if you lose a large object in your toilet or whatever, get a shop vac and then like use some towels or something and clog up the toilet, around the hose, and then just pull it out. Well, I don't have one. So we went to Lowe's and we picked up a shop vac and got a nice shiny new shop vac. We get it in there, and at first I'm down in there, and I've got it clogged with some old t-shirts, and I put that thing in there, and I look over at my wife and I'm about to tell her to hit the switch, and I realize she's got the exhaust port pointed right at me. I was like, you need to turn it the other way, because we had it in the bathtub. I was like, so that was a close one. Anyway, hit it and then like have it down there, and I'm kind of sucking, and then I pull it out. Sure enough, there's like a quarter of like the world's largest potato in there. I mean, it's like a potato the size of a football. Apparently this thing came from, it's like I've seen small children smaller than this potato quarter that came out of this thing. I'm like, success, dude. That's awesome. So I go and I wash my hands 3 times, and I can hear her in there like shaking Gavin, like, was that it? Was it just one little piece? And he was like, so he's in like this drunken stupor because he stayed up all night, obviously cutting potatoes and flushing them down the toilet. Jesus, I don't. So she tries to flush the toilet, and of course it doesn't flush. So evidently there's more potato in there. So the only recourse is take the toilet apart. So this toilet's been here for 12 years, and like the toilet tank bolts were like rusted solid. So it took a little while, some WD-40, some working back and forth to get the toilet off. And, it's like boys. So, of course, pee hits the ground. So, of course, there's pee around the bottom, and that odor just hits you. That's fantastic. And then, so we've got the toilet laying out. And luckily I had a shop vac, so I cleaned out the top tank. And, I had to fight the top tank to get it off for like 30 minutes or whatever. Operating on the assumption I could maybe get in there and do. Anyway, I digress. So I'm hitting this toilet from both ends. I'm basically head to toe in poo for the better part of like 4 hours, and working. And so we reassembled the toilet with all new parts, because all the old parts were so old, they all basically disintegrated in and taking this thing apart. So we get it together, flush the toilet, and of course it doesn't flush. And I said, you know what? I'm done. I'm out of here. And so I just went and took like the longest shower ever. So my wife does some more Googling. She's like, hey, if you get potato peeling stuck in your sink, what do? People are like, make boiling salt water and flush that down the toilet. And so that night she flushed boiling salt water down the toilet. The next morning comes in there and flushes it, and it flushes. So we basically spent an extra 3.5 hours disassembling and reassembling the toilet when all we had to do was flush boiling salt water down the toilet and wait a little while. So that was pretty eventful. But I was thinking that's like the funniest thing he's done since the pubes in a bag. Oops. Yeah, pubes in a bag. But you know what's so funny is the pubes in a bag incident. I said, dude, next time just shave over the toilet and flush it. And then it hit me. This is all my fault. I basically instigated this whole thing. And he's like, oh, doing stuff with potatoes. Dad just says flush it. So it's, you know, it was of my own making, I guess, this whole scenario. But words to wise. First shop vac and then just boiling salt water. Don't get head to toe in poo. That was eventful. That was an interesting one. So I just thought I would share that with you guys. You know, because it's like I went outside this morning and there's this blue tarp that's been sitting next to the trampoline for like 2 weeks, and it waited that precise second to fall out there. And I was like, man, it was almost like I was meant to walk out here. So I was thinking, you know what? I was meant to tell you guys the toilet potato story because somehow that just may save your life one day. So there you go.
That's handy.
You guys have any parting words of wisdom?
If I did, I couldn't top toilet potatoes.
It's kids, man. Kids are simultaneously the best thing and the worst thing, all wrapped up in one bundle. And they are very much teenagers and angsty, and everybody is like fighting me in this house. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's got finding ways to get out and be around and do stuff. It's definitely super critical these days. Golly, Ned, yeah. Oof. Oh yeah, that was. And I've got to say, last 2 weeks ago's podcast with the career resume generating event was pretty good.
Do you have some to share with us? Is that where you're going with this?
Well, you didn't share anyone else's, and I did have mine.
Yes.
That had happened.
Like I said,
just shortly in there.
They weren't my stories to tell, so I was gonna wait till.
No. Well, so mine was for that day. It was week previous to that, so that would have been 3-4 weeks ago. We have 2 DIA circuits into our WISP. And I get a call in the morning and from one of my business customers, and they're saying that there's some issues. I'm like, oh shoot. Well, I'll just hurry up and leave early and get to work and take care of it. So let them know, hey, whatever. I'll be over there. I'll give you guys a call. I get into work. I give them a ring, and they're like, oh, everything's up and running. It's fine. I'm like, yeah, that's weird. They never call me unless there's a really big problem. So I'm like, all right. So I just start kind of working my way from their antenna back to my core to just kind of figure out what's going on. And can't find anything. Although I'm noticing that there's a little bit lower bandwidth than normal for 7 a.m. in the morning. That's when you know you have a problem. It's when you know how much bandwidth your router should be passing at any particular time on a day of the week. So I'm moving it through. I'm like, this is weird. There's nothing here. And eventually I get to one of my core routers. And I'm like, oh, our upstream was doing some maintenance last night, and the BGP session to them isn't up. Must be it's a Mikrotik 1036. I don't trust them at all. I figure there's always a problem on my end, so all right. Must be something buggy in the BGP. I'll reset it and see if we can get it running, but everything's working, and just so happens that our new guy, who is actually older than my dad, walks in. And I'm like, hey, Randy, come over here. I'm going to show you this BGP stuff so that it's a never lose a learning moment, right. Is my opinion right now. So I'm walking him through, and I bring up the other core router in our network.
Oh, no.
And
oh, no.
It's paired with our other upstream, and I'm walking through a working session. And I'm like, okay, you see, here's the interface that the bandwidth is going out on, and that's the one that goes all the way over to these guys and whatever. And he's like, oh, okay, that's really cool. And so I select it and highlight it, and as I'm talking about the various aspects of that and such, and I'm like, okay, so this one, and I'd shown him the other one and shown him, oh, see, this one's down, the BGP session's down. what I'm going to do is I'm going to disable the BGP peering and then turn it back on. And my little brain, was like, oh, I'm going to hit the keyboard shortcuts so that life's easy. And so I hit Control D. And I was looking at the screen, and I have two monitors. So one router was on one screen and the other router was on the other. And the BGP session doesn't go down, doesn't disable. I'm like, what the? Oh shit. That was the moment. I look over and I still had focused on the other router, my Winbox screen, the interface, the working interface for the one upstream. So, no. So I'm like, oh, all right, Randy, learning time's over. Go to the phone. Start answering calls.
Because they're about to start.
The 1036, yeah, it's good. 1036 with full routes into it. So it's going to be 10 minutes for that sucker to load everything up.
What time of day was this?
Would have been 8:15, 8:30 in the morning. About-ish.
Right when everybody's checking their Facebook and browsing LinkedIn.
Well, and like schooling from home, kids are starting to get into class. Oh my gosh. And so I'm trying to, we have a bazillion phone calls coming in, and I'm still trying to do diagnostics because dropping the peering didn't work because it was our upstream. They changed some stuff and forked their config for the LACP connection to us, and so that didn't get fixed till 11 o'clock that day. It's such a pain in the neck. So yeah, that was a very bad moment of you can really screw up really badly here, and they can't hire new people, so you have a very safe position, Randy. Don't worry about it.
Because Randy, when I tell this story, it's going to be you that clicked the button. So, oh man.
Nope, Randy didn't. He's a good guy, and he really didn't know what was going on at all. So that was the nice positive. Because he's like, yep, we're doing the diagnostics and we're working on it. John Osmond had the really great. That was Andrew Horton. He'll soon be a master of the trenches, armed with a phone and some kissing. It was like, yeah, oh my gosh, that was such an idiot move.
Everybody has done that. Everybody has clicked. You've got 5 Winbox windows open, and you're just trying to figure out why isn't this working. It's because you're on the wrong router and you're clicking all the wrong things on the wrong router, and Jesus. Or you're in safe mode, and then you've been working for 45 minutes. You finally get it to work, and at least back in the day, you would close the window and it would just undo the set. Now, if you close and you're in safe mode, it's like, hey, are you sure? I'm pretty sure it prompts you now, right? Like, says, yeah. Oh god, I've done that so many times. So many times.
I had a frustrating moment. I had some packet loss issue a little while back. I was trying to do diagnostics on, and I was making some changes on the remote router, and I couldn't. But I needed to use safe mode so that if the change happened that I did the wrong thing, it would come back to me. And it was really frustrating because I would do some changes and it's like, okay, good. All right, well, let's see if this works, see how this works, see if this thing will start working. And then the packet loss would be just enough to drop the Winbox session.
Ugh.
And I'd lose all this. That's like, oh, I'm such an idiot. Why is this so painful to me? So make changes, double click on that safe mode. As soon as you get it running. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Learning experiences every day. As my grandfather said, if you haven't learned something new today, you've wasted the day. So.
Yeah, I asked I used to ask my kids what they failed at today. Because the idea is if you haven't failed at anything, you're not really trying to do anything yet. So, and then we would, at dinner, we would talk about the things they failed at, or whatever. I haven't asked them that in a long time. I should probably get back to that. And it will probably be answers like, I failed to do this assignment or that assignment. We have this homeschool thing, it is like hard for kids to make a mental shift of I'm not just at home farting around. Like we have had to like super lock it down. So things are getting done now, but they previously weren't. So it's very trying.
Create an area for them to do their work in that is as quiet as can be. It's been my best experience. Like, or even like, depends on the kid. Some kids really, I was homeschooled K through 12. So some kids like need to have somebody else around them. Like my brother and sisters, they loved working together. I, like, as soon as I was old enough to do my own schoolwork, I was off on my own, not doing work because I was on my own. But it was I was way more productive and got stuff done just because I can sit and do my stuff. So it depends on the kid, depends on like how they're, they emotionally react to wanting to work in situations. But having a certain area in the house though is really critical because like you're in that spot and you can get in the mental zone of, okay, this is work area.
Yeah.
And then you'll notice that the kids avoid that area at all costs the rest of their time. So yeah, if you're like my parents, you can cleverly put it where they want to have at least some alone time. Some other times.
Well, I think the only place we could do that is the kitchen table. So that's fine. Nobody seems to eat together anymore anyway. We all kind of live these separate lives. All right, man. Well, did you guys have any other parting words of wisdom? Thanks for sharing that story, Tommy, by the way.
Oh, yeah. No.
One other thing that it's currently just a rumor, but it's a very strong rumor given that there's screenshots of official communications that were sent to the incorrect people. Centurylink appears to be splitting with consumer and small biz keeping the Centurylink name and enterprise, large business, federal rebranding to Lumen, Lumen. And I've heard rumblings about there's another brand called Quantum as well, potentially relating to their fiber, but I don't know if it's consumer fiber or other. Our Facebook and Twitter have links to some screenshots of various things. There's a presentation as well that we have a screenshot of.
Any speculation as to why they would do that? Like, what's this supposed to help with?
I would assume to separate their terrible name from their high dollar customers.
Right, like the enterprise business side. Separate that out.
Yeah. Yeah, because on the consumer small biz side, what are you going to do? You're going to go from Centurylink to, Comcast or Charter or Cox or whoever.
Well,
okay, yeah,
AT&T went to Spectrum, right? They did a name change for the same thing.
Well, Quest was CenturyLink before that, and they changed the name to dodge all the bad rap.
Well, I think CenturyLink bought Quest, right? And then CenturyLink bought Level 3. So they CenturyTel bought Quest. Then they became CenturyLink. Oh.
CenturyTel was originally just a small rural phone company in Louisiana that, assumingly through the endless pot of money known as the Universal Service Fund, helped them acquire the cash to make one acquisition after another, all the way up to Level 3. But I'm guessing that they figured out that all their clients where they make money from don't like their poor reputation. So just make a new one. And be bad at that one as well. But
just muddy the waters, that's all.
But somebody in our Slack, so that's a rumor that's pretty well substantiated. Somebody in Slack just said CenturyLink is breaking into 3 brands. I think the names are suck much, lose data, and are we down?
Good times. Oh, internet, you're the best.
It and that kind of reminds me back to the Centurylink outage of before. Somebody made a website called something like "Is Level 3 Down?" And to which it's just a static page that just says probably.
Good times. All right. Well, let's put a bow on it. We're almost at 2 hours. Thanks to Mike's interesting Zhone musings. I'm going to change the title from Mike's Zhone comedy half hour. I think that's what that little section is going to say. But T-Cent, if people are going to find you, Tommy Krogan, is that right?
Krogan. Yep, that's fine.
Krogan.
It's better than Croffin. I had one teacher calling me Croffin for 4.5 years. She was so pissed when somebody corrected her, and I just thought it was the funniest thing in the world because like we interacted in like a lot of different settings. So there was multiple times where somebody said, "Tommy Krogan, please come up and do this thing," and she never caught on. And I had her for classes for 2 years, and then I was like visited her house a few times and stuff like that. Oh my gosh, it was the funniest thing in the world.
My father-in-law called me Jeff until the day my wife and I got married, and he realized my name was actually Greg. So I just never really bothered to correct it. He was a diesel mechanic for like 30 years, so he could hardly hear, and so it was just it was just easier to just know that when he said Jeff, he was talking about me. So I just hey, what's up?
He sees the wedding invite and is like, "Who's Greg?"
I don't know. Somebody in my family, I think, finally corrected him, and he was like, "Oh, okay." But Tommy, if folks want to find you out on the internet, because I know you do some consulting. Times are a little busy right now, so I'm not sure how much you're picking up. But where can they find you?
LostCreek.tech is the website, and T. Krogan at LostCreek.tech. You can reach out to me. I do occasional blogging, and I've been working a couple different posts, and I have a big series of posts that I'm going to be pushing out here soon. Well, probably it's probably going to be a few months yet for it, but documenting my crazy active Ethernet to the customer's home network that didn't actually cost us all that much.
Very nice, man.
So yeah, it's I do stuff there. I occasionally will put some notes up about like, oh, this was this crazy thing that is super helpful for general and basic networking knowledge. So, but I also do consulting, and yeah, some other fun stuff. So yeah, reach out. Feel free. Bug me. It's not like I don't have 1,000 other things to do. I love fun, weird projects.
All right, rock and roll. Mikey, if people are going to get a hold of you out on the internet, how are they going to do that? Is it through the Zhone forums? Is that where they're going to find you?
Yeah, well, I was going to say, like, if Zhone had forums, you could find me there. But they don't. I did create an unofficial Zhone users group on Facebook. We've got like 15 members now.
Rock and roll.
And I'm the other one that posts. So,
As I say, is it just you and Ollie bitching back and forth?
I don't know if he even knows about it. I'll have to see if I can invite him.
Oh,
I don't know if he's on. I think he got off Facebook because he's smarter than the rest of us.
oh well. Some folks are a little bit ahead of the curve. So you can you guys can find me at Greg at gregshole.com. I very regularly blog now at gregshole.com. You can also get a hold of us at contact us at the Brothers WISP. Any questions or comments? I love hearing it. Anybody that wants to pop on. We haven't had a surprise guest in a while. I'm just curious, any of our regular guys in the Slack or anything. Anybody that wants to get in and dish about whatever, man. I need a little, not necessarily new blood. I just like seeing new faces every now and then. I think it's interesting to hear about where you guys are coming from and what you've been doing. So questions, comments, thank you. To all our patrons, patreon.com/brotherswisp. Really DMing me. Easiest, quickest way to get a hold of me. If you have any questions, dude, you guys have been killing it in the Slack, like with answering everybody's questions. so much support. I saw somebody post the other day like, hey, do we have any Apache experts? And I looked at that thread and it was like 40 messages long, and they had resolved whatever issue. And I think it was Lee that helped him out. I think he actually took whoever's config it was and duplicated on some infrastructure he had and got it working. It's like, man, you guys are going above and beyond. Here's the best, all of yous. So Tommy, thank you for coming out today. Mikey, as always, and I guess we'll see you guys next time. Oh,
See ya.
one last thing, Simon, I didn't forget, I'm doing research on Skype NDI. I've just been lazy, so we'll have it next time. Thanks, bye.
Net surfing. We got horrible jokes, we're loud and annoying, but we're informative facts, we're not disappointing. Just give us a listen, cause fun is the mission. I'm telling you, you don't know what you are missing. Ideas and some good comedy given. If you missed the show already, don't worry, you're forgiven.